Hi, friends. So today we are going to talk about life. Big topic. I know that some of you wonder, what exactly is life? What is it all about? Why are we here? How does this wacky thing work? At least from my perspective and belief system and my understanding of everything that I've collected and learned throughout all of the years that I've lived in this life and the next. I'm going to tell you how things are set up and how you can make it work for you. So, before you jump into this human body, you actually work on planning out your life ahead of time on the other side. You work with your guides to make decisions about who you're going to work with, who your parents are going to be, what sorts of challenges you're going to face. What it is you want to learn and get from out of this life, and also like what your purpose, your mission, your dharma, if you will, is for the life. So you look at different body types. Yes, believe it or not, you chose the body that you're in, you chose your parents. Some of you are like, yeah, of course I did. I love my mom and dad. And some of you are like, yeah, I don't believe you. You're full of it. But it's true, because even those situations that were really hard and challenging in your childhood were chosen deliberately because they were there to reactivate some of these wounds, some of these fears, some of these lessons that you've been working on through previous lives. So, for example, perhaps in a previous life, you felt very powerless because of a particular role. Maybe you were enslaved, or you were poorly paid maid in a, I was going to say terrarium. That doesn't make any sense. In like a castle or something. I don't know. Be creative. Think about what works for you. But essentially, if you had lives where you felt really powerless and this was some like a wound that you were still carrying around, that you're like, I really want to fix this and heal this and be done with this and see that I'm a beautiful, amazing person, you might choose a life where you feel very powerless in your family dynamic as a child. Now, you would think, why would I want to choose that for myself? Your soul, unfortunately, is okay with you feeling pain and discomfort, because they know, your soul knows. I use they them pronouns for your soul because I don't know what gender your soul is. Your soul knows that going through those challenges and those difficult times is going to help you unlock and become wiser and realize, like, sometimes, like, when it gets so hard and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't stand this anymore, I don't want to deal with this anymore, you surrender, you let go, you realize the larger truth so that you can kind of get out of it. Now, good news, you don't have to do it that way. We, I think, historically have always chosen these really challenging existences because that's, it's like it's like a hard homework. If we make things really hard, then we learn it really deeply. However, when you are ready, you don't have to do that anymore. You can actually start to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to learn the easy way. It's like, I'm going to read the Cliff Notes book instead of reading the entire tome of Ulysses, and you're like, I can still learn what I need out of the Cliff Notes book. When you're ready to kind of make things light and easy on yourself, please feel free. You don't need to be stuck in challenging drama. So, yeah, that is how you kind of set up your life. And then when you're planning out your life, it's not like there's just one path. I mean, it's not like fatalism, right? It's not like this is going to happen and then this is going to happen and then this is going to happen. It's more like you're going on a trip and you're like, I kind of want to see some museums. I kind of want to go out to some dance club. I kind of want to meet some interesting people. And so you're like, okay, you and your guy plan out, like, okay, well, here's an ideal path. But you know what? If maybe on Sunday you're feeling tired and you don't want to go to the museums, maybe we'll swap that out for a day where you hang out at home and rest. I'm using metaphors here, but essentially that is the idea for your life. You've got all these variety of different paths you can take. The general experiences that you want to have will happen in your life, but they can be moved around, they can be shifted a little bit. So I say all of this because I want you to know that you have power in how your life unfolds. It isn't like all of these things are happening to you, they're happening for you, as right all the spiritual gurus like to say, but also that it's not like you don't have your own sense of ownership in your life. You can say, you know what, I'm not really ready for that challenge right now. Or you can say, I am ready for that challenge right now, but can we make it a little easier? Now you've got to be in alignment with your soul, and we'll get into that in other videos. But to give you an idea about how things sort of play out, that's just sort of that's the general idea. Okay, so we've covered your childhood. You set it up so that you get triggered. Yeah. And then we covered sort of the various different potential itineraries, right, for your life that can be changed around as things go through. Now let's talk about actually living it. Okay. So as you live your life, you have guides that work with you. One of the things I talk to my friends, my clients, anybody who will stand still long enough to listen, use your guides for help. They're going to respect you and like, hey, she wants to do this on her own, we'll let her do it on her own. But if you're like, hey, you know what, I don't really want to figure this out on my own, I really want some help, or I'd really like this to happen, just ask them. They're there to help you. And so as you live your life and as you're going along your path, they are talking to you to make sure that you're realizing, like, hey, right, this is what you're trying to learn. They're kind of whispering in your ears. They need to give you a little bit of guidance because you came forward with an itinerary. You don't remember what that itinerary is. And they are there to really help you stay on your path or to help you work through your various different options and give you a little bit of guidance and make sure you're like as safe and as happy and as loved as you can be in this life. So work with them, ask them for help. They're there. They're your little life tour guide. Just talk to them. And you might be surprised over time, you might actually start getting an answer. I did. And it's changed my life to be able to communicate with my guides and get information to the little things, just even like asking for parking spots and directions, to really talking to them about, as I'm dealing with big challenging things in my life, trying to understand why it is I'm experiencing these challenges, what it is that I'm hoping to learn, and how I can learn it quickly so that I can get through it. So that is kind of the idea about, as you go through your life, you're dealing with, you'll see these challenges. It's sort of the same, I will say it's often the same challenge that shows up in a lot of different costumes and a lot of different areas of your life. So if we're going to stick with this powerless, theme, the idea could be, and really what you wanted to learn was to connect into your own power. And so you had a life, you had a childhood where you felt powerless. And then as you grew up, maybe you had a relationship, a romantic relationship where you felt powerless. That you had that one and then another one and then another one, and they kind of kept on happening until you finally said, no, I don't want this anymore, right? That was an opportunity for you to be like, no, I'm stepping into my power. I'm not allowing myself to see myself as powerless again. So it could be showing up in your relationships. But meanwhile, and maybe you even learn it in your relationships. So you've learned it to a particular level. But then meanwhile, if we turn our head and we look at your work environment, maybe you're seeing that again show up, that feeling of powerless, being victimized, being taken advantage of, you're not being paid enough, whatever that is. And again, these things are happening to you in order to give you something to stand up against, to be able to say, no, I am a powerful being. I am not going to allow myself to be treated this way. I will not be accepting these particular situations in my life. Okay. So that's why I want to learn those lessons, because I don't want to keep on repeating them. And because, every time you go through them, it shifts a little bit. Maybe it gets a little lighter, it gets a little bit better, or maybe it gets a little worse, depending on whether and how much you're learning and how much you're getting that message. And then hopefully at the end of your life, you look back and you say, okay, well, I wanted to learn X, Y, Z. In this case, I wanted to learn about being powerful. And you can see, you can talk with your guide. You're the one who judges you. You're the one who evaluates your life. You're the one who goes through and says, okay, well, these are the challenges I set up for myself. I really wanted to learn this. Did I learn it? Did I learn it to the extent that I wanted to? you're doing this for yourself. You're not doing this for some divine judgment. You're doing this for your own personal growth. You are the one that will measure your success and your failure. And if you're anything like me, you're probably a harder critic on yourself than anybody else is. So keep that in mind. And then, if you didn't learn it, you're going to go to another life and learn it again, try again, try to set up the stage a little bit differently, try to set up the game board a little differently to see if you can kind of get things in a different way. Maybe you make things harder, maybe you make things louder, or maybe you got it. You figured it out. You got that lesson, and then you get to pick up the next lesson in your next life and figure that out and kind of wash, rinse, repeat, etc. So that's the piece about learning, right? What we're here to learn. But that's not the only reason we're informed. We're also informed to give, to do, to have a purpose. So let's talk about purpose. It can also be called dharma, right? In Hindu religion, we call it dharma. It's that life purpose, what you're here to do and give in the world. And the thing that I have learned about purpose is that in the United States, particularly, we can get really focused on it being about a job or being about a business. I know I certainly was that way. That was certainly my interpretation of it. And it is true for me. My purpose is about work in a way, but it doesn't have to be. I know a lot of people who their purpose is like being a mother, being like the divine mother, or their purpose is raising a special needs child and the lessons and the growth that they have through that. Perhaps your purpose is even just working with animals or working with plants, and it's not necessarily something that you get paid for, but it's something that really fills you up, and it's something that feels in alignment with your soul, and where you're giving your life, your energy back to the planet, to the earth, to the community that we live in. So I really just love that it doesn't have to come in a particular shape or size. We get pushed into like, what's your career? And for some people, a job is just a job, and that is okay. It doesn't have to be a calling if that's not what you want. Now, if it is what you want, or you're just wanting to figure out what your purpose is overall, I personally know how hard it can be to know that you have a purpose, or maybe not even know if you have a purpose, and not understand what it is or feel really confused about it. Maybe you have some kind of pieces of what it is, but you really don't know how it all fits together or what it's supposed to look like. And that can really freeze you up, right? As far as like, I don't know what my purpose is. I feel like I should have a purpose, but I don't even know what to do. One of the things that came to me when I was in my early 20s, when I was in that place, when I was feeling really stuck, was this image of just pick a path. Just pick a path. By moving forward, you will find your way to the right trail. The image that came in was like all of these different trails that eventually will wind its way to the right trail. But if you don't move forward, you're not moving anywhere. You're not going to be able to get on your path as long as you're staying still. So even if it's the wrong way, if you don't know which way to go, if it at least feels good somehow, then it's going to get you closer. You don't always have to know what it looks like. And in fact, sometimes you can't even know what it looks like. Sometimes you can't even imagine or believe what your purpose is because it's so good. It's so good. It's too good to be true. Maybe you won't even allow yourself to see it. So I really recommend if you are looking to figure out what your life purpose is, I got really intense there for a second. If you're looking to figure out what your life purpose is, I would just start with what brings you joy. I'm doing this. I'm touching my chest because it's something that you can feel inside. Like tap into your inner self. Like what excites you? What feels like a yes when you think about doing it? When you think about, let's say your purpose is to work with plants because that is people's purpose, right? They're plant oriented and not necessarily people oriented. Maybe the idea about going into a gardening shop. I'm not a plant person, so I'm sure there's a technical phrase for it. It's not coming to me, but going into like a gardening shop, that just makes you light up and makes you feel seen or feel like yourself. And so maybe that's what you do at first is you go buy a few plants or you go and talk to the shop to see if they have any openings. That could be it. I'll do more videos about finding purpose, but I want at least to have some sort of thing to start with as you're thinking about that purpose. Because we come here in life to learn, to fulfill our purpose, and also to deal with some karmic relationships. So we'll talk about that third. But it is really on to go into the second one, purpose, to continue to wrap up the second one, purpose. It really is about taking what is special and magical about you, something that you uniquely have to give, and sharing it with the world. And I will say this before I move on to the third topic. The thing that I find particularly exciting about the time of the world that we're in right now is that so much is possible. Like YouTube, right? Back in the day, you would have to get onto network television. That's a lot of gatekeepers. You had to have all these credentials, etc. That's not something that you could do, right? These days, you can pick up an iPhone and be on YouTube. You can put together a website. You can write a book and you can self-publish it. There are a lot of ways that you can get your information out there into the world, and you don't have to wait for somebody else to give you permission. You only have to give yourself permission. So give yourself permission to explore, to play, and just to listen what lights you up, and to move forward one step at a time. You don't have to know it all right now. And again, ask your guides for help. If you're wanting to find your purpose or trying to understand more about what it is, just ask. They'll help. They'll bring you some resources and information. Okay. Third is karmic relationships. So I talked about your childhood and the relationships you might have set up to kind of trigger you so that you have so you hit the ground running as a child with trauma. It's great. It's fantastic. Sarcasm. But yeah, that you have things that trigger you. But there is more about relationships in your life that are pre-planned than just your childhood relationships. So we have lived all these lives together, and we have disappointed each other, we have hurt each other, we have killed each other, we have helped each other, we have loved each other. We have had these numerous different variety of relationships. And we really like to have balance, right? Again, you're driving it. Your soul wants to feel in balance. So if your soul did something that hurt somebody in some way, like here's an example. Let's say in a past life, you were a father that abandoned their family, and you damaged that family, and then in the afterlife you reviewed that life and you saw the pain and suffering. You actually physically felt and lived the pain and suffering, because that's what you do. You actually go and experience things from other people's point of view. I know it's a little terrifying, but you experience things from other people's point of view so that you understand the impact you had on others. And then your soul is like, you know what, I really don't want to leave things there. I don't want to leave things there. I want to come back in another life and try to rebalance things, so that perhaps in that next life, when you encounter people, in that next life, when you encounter your wife and your family, and it's maybe going to be a different dynamic, perhaps in this life, you then have it set up in such a way that you cannot leave them. Meanwhile, you're working with that family that has this fear of abandonment, so they might be really acting out towards you because subconsciously they realize or they remember that you left them before, and they're afraid you're going to leave them again. So they might be extra clingy, they might be extra jealous, they might be really tearful and sad and scared. They might be reacting in really heightened ways that don't make sense to you, because you're like, I'm not going anywhere. I don't understand why you're so afraid I'm going to leave you, because I'm here. It's all of that old wound. So you're playing it out where this time you just choose to stick around. So that's one example where you've hurt somebody. Now, another example might be that somebody helped you, that maybe somebody, for example, saved your life. And so you want to come back into the next life and you want to repay them. So Perhaps you saved their life in some way. Perhaps you are their mother and you raise them and you give them life. There might be some way that you're balancing out those karmic scales. So, how do you know if you've got karmic relationships going on? Well, one thing I would say, honestly, right off the bat, if there's somebody that you meet that you feel like you know them right away, you probably, right, you have past experiences with them. So that's going to be one clue. Another clue, kind of like what I said, is that if the reactions that you have towards them or they have towards you seem sort of outsized of what the actual experience is, that tells you that there's a different story underneath everything that's kind of playing itself out. And thirdly, like how you feel about that person can also tell you a lot. I have somebody in my life that I feel is kind of like my child, even though they're older than me. I have somebody else in my life who feels like a wife to me, right? Even though that's not the relationship we have, or a husband to me. There are different, it's kind of interesting. I'm like, okay, well, you're a friend or you're a coworker, or whatever the dynamic is. And yet I have these different sorts of feelings. That tells you there's a little bit more history and there's a little bit more karmic bonds there. Now, how do you deal with these karmic relationships in this life? One of the things I like to try to do, certainly not perfect, but I try to do is who do I want to be in this relationship? Like, be thoughtful and intentional about how do I want to show up in this relationship? Because I will have instincts or lower instincts, egoic instincts to kind of act out or behave in particular ways. And sometimes I have to stop myself and say, in a bigger picture, stepping back a little bit, how do I want to be? How do I want to show up in this relationship? And that can really shift things. Secondly, I think really trying to listen deeply to what the other person needs from you, right? If, for example, there was abandonment or previous pain, do they need to hear from you that you love them or that you will stay with them or that you accept them for exactly who they are? There's something they might be needing from you, and it might be something you know how to give them, or it might be even worth a really honest conversation. And thirdly, like, let's be honest, sometimes we can't work out those karmic relationships in this lifetime. Sometimes those dynamics are just so fraught, or they don't feel safe, or you just feel like that person is not in the same mental space you are and isn't able to have an open, loving conversation with you. And in which case, I mean, I would say my advice would be try to do what you can inside to shift the relationship internally. Try to do what you can to give yourself love and the other person love. And then just accept that maybe this is something that needs to be worked out next time, and maybe next time you'll get it set up a little bit differently. But in the end, always try to be the highest version of yourself that you can be. I mean, you can't go wrong there, right? Okay, so that is kind of the high level idea about the life that we live, what we're here to do. So I encourage you to think through your life and think about what might be some challenges, what might be your purpose, what might be some karmic relationships. Again, I wanted to keep this sort of an overview, but I will dig into the various different topics. So if there's anything that you're particularly interested in or want to dig in more, let me know. Happy to dig in, happy to have a conversation about it too. You can learn more about me at jillianharrington.com. I'm a life coach, intuitive energy worker, and you can also check out the podcast I do with my friend called Shit My Soul Says with Rosalie Forrest, where we talk about should our soul say. And I'm getting this channel going, so the more that you can like, subscribe, etc., it helps. That's what I do ask, is if you got this far, go ahead and just push a button. Push some of that energy back towards me. I appreciate it, and I hope that you have a beautiful life and that you live this life on purpose.